Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Broken Sword.
Hello, and welcome back, maybe, if you were with us this morning.
Yes, so we had a few technical issues there. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes late. We are going to pretty much ignore comments for this one. Not to be rude, but we want to kind of stick to the topic at hand. We're going to get through all of our review of episode 3, and then we will come back to the comments. And of course, we will not miss any super chats towards the end. Sound good?
I think it sounds good.
Okay, so if you're not already used to this, we are going through these episodes and breaking them down and reviewing them, but we're doing it slightly different. We're doing it with pros and cons.
Yeah, kind of like an up and down system,
Yeah.
the good and the bad system. We just want to go through each storyline, each kind of point. We're admittedly at this point a bit iffy on how precise we're being with each point. We're giving ups and downs too, but it's kind of how the feel of the episode goes.
Yes. So, as you can see, we are starting with 0 pros and 0 cons, and we will be going through the episode storyline by storyline. So, what I mean by that is we're not going through chronologically.
Like minute by minute. We're not doing that.
So we'll cover like the Harfoot stories, and then the Arondir story, and the Numenor story.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. I guess we should get straight into it. I'm having a quick look at the comments. If you are only just watching the episode now, it's probably best you turn us off because there will obviously be spoilers. So you have been warned. Do not shout at us if we spoil anything for you. Okay, let's get our notes up. So we will start with the shortest storyline of the episode, which was the Harfoot storyline.
Yes, and this was a weird one because we both kind of said that we were pleasantly surprised with the Harfoots in the first couple of episodes.
Yeah.
However, I feel like I didn't quite feel the same this time.
Yeah, it was definitely the weakest storyline of the episode for me. I felt like it moved very slowly. No pun intended, because so did they. But it just didn't really get anywhere for me. Yeah,
it was a lot of... It almost felt like it should have happened in the last episode, as opposed to being in this one.
Yeah.
So, it starts off with them with their little ritual festival thing.
Nobody goes off trail. Nobody walks alone.
Yep. Say that a lot. And then they talk about everyone that they've left behind, which is a little bit unusual.
Yeah, at first I was like, what? Are they just like not nice people? They just, oh, that guy's slow, let's leave him to die. That's how it came across.
Yeah.
But then they did kind of go through and name some, and they were like, oh, avalanche and then landslide and whatever. And
yeah, because there were actually a couple of bits in this when this came up that almost surprised me a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
Not surprised, just things I guess I hadn't paid enough attention to early on, or I just missed, or they hadn't been said yet. For example, I don't know if I'm stupid in this, but I've only just clocked on that Marigold is the second wife of Largo.
Yeah.
So Nori is not her daughter. I feel like I've just completely blanked on that. Didn't quite realize that. And as well, Poppy is actually on her own.
Yeah.
Because they went through it all, named the people. Cannot remember the surname off the top of my head, but they talk about basically Poppy's family was one of the ones they left behind who got swept away by a landslide. So that's actually quite sad. A little bit of character building. So I'm all for that kind of thing.
And I feel like it was a different way of character building, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a way of kind of telling the story here, I feel like it kind of gets a pro.
Yeah, I feel like there's almost one for each at this point. I feel like there's a pro for the building of the characters, and they did that in a nice way. But there's also a con for this felt like it was, like I said, I felt like this wasn't really needed in this episode, and maybe should have been included in one of the first 2.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was a nice moment, but unnecessary placement of it.
Yeah.
But we have a little bit. Should we cover the whole Harfoot story before we do pros and cons, or should we do them as we go?
I think we should do them as we go. We have a problem though. I cannot edit.
No, you can't edit on my life.
Something's gone wrong.
Okay.
I think it's just something's gone wrong with our computer.
If you create.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
We're finding this out live, so.
Yeah. No, it's not letting me do anything. So this is just fantastic. We're gonna have to keep score in our heads.
Okay. May as well take that off the screen for now then.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Anyway,
technology, eh?
Going live, it's great, isn't it? Nothing ever goes wrong. Okay.
I can't do anything.
It must be it's the notes thing then. So just get our notes back up. We'll just crack on. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So at the moment we are at 1-1. I'll make a note on my phone as we go because that's how this is going to end up going now. So we are
Given a pro for the way that they were giving a backstory to the characters. I think that's where we're at. Does that make sense?
Cool. Yeah. So we're 1 each at the moment.
Yeah. I actually even with that. Yes. Hang on. Bear with me. No, I still can't change it. Oh, what is going on?
I'm so lost what you're trying to do right now.
I was trying to close this.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. We're still new to this program.
Yeah. So you may as well get rid of pros and cons as well. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, back to where we were. So at this point, Sadek gives his speech to everyone, which felt very, Oh wait, no. Sorry. Before that, Nori steals the papers of the stars.
Yes.
That comes first because you see Sadek practicing writing his speech. Similar way, I guess, to Alvon writing Gil-galad's speech, like trying to get the words right.
Yeah.
Which to me was a nothing moment anyway. But I didn't like the Poppy hiding under the table stuff.
No.
Those kind of moments for me are just a bit. I guess those characters, they're supposed to be a bit more like comedic relief. Such as the hand going above and the Poppy really obviously being, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's just like those just. I think the issue was the Harfoots just weren't very strong in this episode for me. And I feel moments like that don't help it. And it didn't do anything more for the character for me.
No.
It didn't build them up anymore.
No.
It was just one of those like.
It felt like filler. When you're watching an episode of Dragon Ball Z and you're like, oh, this episode is not moving the story along whatsoever.
Yeah.
Some of this Harfoot storyline felt a little bit like that. The only real, I guess, progress in the story that we made is the revelation to the rest of the Harfoots that the stranger was there and Nori was involved. That's pretty much all that happened.
Yeah. Because the stranger just kind of wanders in as well. It's not really set up that he was close. It's not really set up that anything had happened with him or. Yeah, it was just that he suddenly appeared there, he finds the map, conveniently enough, and holds it over fire.
Yeah.
So it catches on fire, he stumbles in, kind of gets seen. Yeah, you can keep counting the comments about pros and cons. That'll be great.
I can't.
For some reason, our keyboard's just not working in the chat, for whatever reason.
I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
No, yeah, but I think we just forget that for now. That's fine. Yeah, so the whole thing with the stranger in this episode, in this part, was a bit like, I guess, just a bit clumsy giant-ish.
Yeah.
Which was a nothing point to me as well. But then we kind of skipped to Sadek saying to, the Nori and her family, he doesn't say, but the other woman does, like, we should de-caravan you. You should be kicked out because you put our whole tribe in danger. And Sadek is a more reasonable man from this. And goes, well, she's a kid, you can't punish them that drastically for a kid's mistake.
Yeah. And he says, well, they can come with us on the migration, I think they call it, but they can go at the back, which the Harfoots is like, oh, the back.
Yeah, it's because Largo knows that because of his foot, he will fall behind. So if there's no one behind him, he will get left behind.
Yes.
But,
Plot armor.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's one of those. So obviously we later see them starting to move and Largo just cannot keep up. He cannot drag the cart quick enough because of his foot.
Yes. Fortunately, though, the stranger had snuck on board and was evidently there to save the day.
Following, and basically going, I can say it, but turns out he can push the cart instead and keep them up.
Yeah, and his kind of only real spoken word here is he comes out and says, friend. Which has got the Gandalf theorizers going crazy.
But we just see Nori when he enters.
True.
He does that. But yeah, he's only got a single word. There's definitely no sentences forming yet.
No.
Yeah, so all in all, it didn't really do a lot. It was very much a case like we knew they were going to be migrating soon, and it was very obvious the stranger was going to be going with them. I assumed it would be more secretive, to be fair, but it's now very public.
Yeah, I don't think he knows what he's doing, to be honest. I want to give the whole handling of the stranger in this episode a con. This was a storyline from episode 1 and 2 that I was really intrigued by, and as we're getting into it, I'm just starting to care a little less, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like I said, we got nothing from this section to push anything along. It was just they should have done something with the first couple of episodes, included this kind of thing in that, and left it with that.
Yeah.
So that's a con for the stranger. and we already were 1 pro, 1 con. So at the moment, we are 2-1 to cons
Yeah.
at the end of the Harfoot story.
Yeah.
Not a strong start.
No, let's move on from the Harfoot story because let's be honest, it was the weakest of the episode. We'll move on now to the Southlands storyline. So, following Arondir, who is a character that I've enjoyed in the first 2 episodes, but this, not necessarily this sequence because of his character, but this sequence in general was very strong in my opinion, for the most part.
Yes, they were. Just the fact we got to see the orcs properly at last, it worked. It was one of those moments that obviously they were by far the best received things from everything put out before the show. They looked incredible, but they needed to work in the show as well, and thankfully they did. They were suitably terrifying. They had enough personality. They weren't just a complete, like, you could tell they're not the smartest as such, that they need a leader, but they had their own personalities as beings, which that kind of thing is great.
Yeah, and we said this during the watch party, but the orcs felt very reminiscent of the Shadow of Mordor games. They all have personalities. They all have the same accents, which I've grown to love. And yeah, they were just, let's put it this way, they were a considerable improvement on the Hobbit movies.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. The practicalness of them all was perfect. I absolutely loved it.
It's just a breath of fresh air in general to have a modern day fantasy show that's not heavily reliant on CGI for what is essentially a monstrous creature, right? An orc is a monstrous creature. So I put money on, these days 9 out of 10 studios would be like, let's just sort it in post,
Yeah.
Let's just CG it. Even when it came to the Hobbit movies, a lot of the goblin sequences were filmed with practical goblins, and they went over them with CG ones, right?
Yeah, they had issues with something or other, and then they just went, oh, you know what? Rather than reshoot, we'll just CG everything. And
yeah,
I think they would have been better off reshooting.
Yeah, and with the budget involved in this, you could have definitely seen them going down the CG route, but hopefully it was, learning from the feedback of the Hobbit movies that led them to doing fully practical orcs, which was 100% the right decision. And I think whether you hate this show or whether you're really enjoying it, everyone can agree that the orcs, they look pretty good.
Yeah, so for the look of the orcs, we're getting a pro.
Definitely a pro for the orcs.
So we're 2-2. Okay, so that's just the introduction of them. We have a whole story to go through now.
Yes, we do.
So when we first see it, obviously Arondir is being dragged through. You kind of get this idea of their tunnel system, which had been hinted at in trailers, but now we get to see it properly. And he gets thrown into this pit, but open area, and it reveals straight away there's not men there. Well, not just men there, I should say.
Yeah.
There were also elves.
Yes, the ones that we met in episode 1, the one that was kind of on watch with Arondir, they have somehow been overrun and captured as well.
Yes.
Which was unexpected.
Yes. And I will admit, good or bad, I had to look up the names because I'd completely forgotten. We have Medhor, who is the friend, and it's Watchwarden Revion is the older one. So, yeah, I feel like we didn't really know enough of them to warrant knowing their names by the seams of it.
No.
But that'll come later. But yeah, it's really well done when they're introduced, and it was a shock to me because I wasn't expecting them at all. I was just expecting the people captured from the villages, and that was it. So I thought that was a nice little surprise twist.
I agree. I don't think it was big enough of a surprise or good enough of a surprise for a pro.
No. I wouldn't say that, but it was a nice I didn't actually expect that one.
Yeah.
Like we expected the slaves, didn't expect the owls, but yeah.
What I did like though, and something that we saw on multiple occasions throughout the storyline, and I think is worthy of a pro, is the way that the orcs were reacting to the sunlight.
Yes.
It started off when you first seen the sun coming from behind the cloud, that one of the orcs was like, oh no, and kind of
you kind of got that burning.
Yeah, and jogs under some cover. And I like that straight away we're kind of showing that orcs need darkness. It's cool.
That direct sunlight on their skin is a big no-no.
Can we give a pro for
that? We kind of did in the setup, I feel.
Okay,
I feel like
all right.
It kind of probably comes under the same.
Yeah, it's mentioned in this section then that the orcs are clearly searching for something.
Yes, and Arondir is like some sort of weapon.
Yeah,
and it's just I'm not sure how I feel about that.
It's a bit stereotypical.
Yeah,
they're searching for a weapon to help them win the war. It's something like that, But again, in the watch party, people in the comments were theorizing that perhaps this weapon could have been the broken sword that Theo has been hiding. I guess and it could be. I don't really see why.
Yeah, I don't even think they're searching for anything particularly. I think they are just trying to get through the lands, to dig it all up, to destroy it, and turn it into what we know Mordor will become. So I don't particularly think they are searching for a particular item. I think they're just trying to take over the land.
Yeah,
myself,
probably more likely.
Which I don't really know. But yeah, we'll have to see how that goes in the future, I guess. But this is where we get our first hint of Adar.
Adar. So this is someone that we saw promotional images for. He had his own poster. Looked pretty cool. All we knew going into the show was that he was leading some orcs. It's pretty quickly said that they kind of start theorizing in the show, like who could this Adar be? And then someone mentions Sauron goes by many names.
Revion, if that was how you say his name.
Yeah.
The old Elf.
Yes. He mentions that, and he says perhaps this is just another name of Sauron's. And again, I just don't think that's going to be the case. They like throwing in these red herrings, throwing us off the trail as to who Sauron's really going to be, which again is kind of the people that are saying Hellbrand is going to be Sauron are kind of like, yeah, they're throwing us this way to take us away from thinking that it's going to be Hellbrand, but really it's going to be, So I don't know. The thought of Adar made him sound very, very powerful, and we'll get to more on him in a bit, but I quite like the fact that there's a middleman. I know they're theorizing, that they're speculating and hinting that it could be Sauron, but obviously we know it's not going to be.
Yeah, it was one of those, we need a bad guy. And we need a person or a thing to kind of focus the thing on. And it was one of the big things with the Peter Jackson trilogy, was that Sauron is supposed to be the bad guy through it all, but he's also a big eye. Well, not actually in the books. But he doesn't appear in person. He stays in his fortress. So what we can do? So they introduce Saruman as more of the front bad guy, even bringing in Lurtz as an actual physical body for them to fight and be in contact with, because obviously Saruman stays in his tower as well. And then it's kind of pulled over into the two towers as well. And it's just kind of, sometimes you need that more active, closer threat to make it a bit more interesting, because if it was just all about Sauron the entire time again, and again we don't see him until season 2 potentially, like properly, then it's hard to really, like, you need someone to root against.
Yeah, we need an immediate threat.
Yeah.
If we know Sauron's rebuilding his strength, and at some point in the future he's going to attack, like there's no immediate tension. We're not worried about anything in the immediate future, and it's just kind of like a waiting game. So having Adar, I'm not quite sure exactly how they're pronouncing it, I think is a great choice.
Yes. So I would actually give a pro for the introduction and build-up of this mysterious Adar that we have not quite seen yet.
I agree.
Okay. And a pro.
So moving on, then we get to a scene where the orcs are forcing the slaves to continue digging these tunnels, but they get to a tree. A tree is kind of blocking the path. The roots of the tree are blocking the path of this tunnel. The orcs are pretty adamant on, well, just, cut the tree down. But these are elves. They respect these trees. I think Revion even says something on the lines of, this tree has earned its place here.
Yes.
I will not cut it down. So the way the orcs act to this, react to this rather, is they compliment him for being strong and say, well done, you deserve some water. It's some water to Revion, who passes it to Arondir, who drinks some water, who passes it to that Medhor, however you pronounce it. As he's drinking it, slice.
Yeah, this
quick cut across the throat.
Yeah, this is one thing we got to give the show at the moment, is they're quite happy for their shock moments.
Yes.
They're not scared to do something gruesome right in our face. And that was a very out of the... Like, you could feel there's build-up, something was going to happen, but it was still quite a shocking moment.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that they're not afraid to show us what we should be seeing. This is, a world where the violence is with blades.
Yes.
It's going to be graphic. So it's cool that they're not afraid to show that.
Yeah, I would think I'd actually give a pro for that.
Yes.
The handling of how that bit was done. Because it was a really tense scene as well. It was all built up well. And the payoff of the elf dying was actually pretty satisfactory.
Yeah, well, considering we didn't really know much about this elven character, and to be honest, personally, I didn't care about him. He was just some guy that had a couple of lines in episode 1. What was interesting about this is seeing Arondir probably experience death. I can't imagine it's the first time ever. He's
No.
probably very old, but chances are there's not been a lot of death going around since the Wars of Beleriand, right? So
Yeah, no, since the Second Age has however many years that is in the show at this point, it's like I say, it's been peaceful. They maybe the odd human, well, they'll see humans die,
of course, yeah.
but yeah, for their kin, I don't think that there's unlikely to be any really.
True. Yeah, so we got to see Arondir witnessing a friend of his die.
Hmm.
So they're already kind of dealing with how elves, immortal beings, handle death.
Yes.
Obviously, that's a big part of the prologue at the start of episode 1. We're now seeing it come into the storyline that we're following, which I thought is cool. It's cool. I don't know if it's a pro, but I like where they're going with it.
I think that'll just kind of link into our previous one. So yeah.
Moving on from there, then trying to think what the next bit is. It
Yeah. Yeah, there was a bit with Revion's reaction as when he slits his throat and Arondir is like kind of holding him. And yeah, that I think it's Revion. I think that's how you say it. I had to look up the name, so I only saw the spelling. He shouts in Elvish, which I looked up as a translation, and basically translates to "howl, wild beast." So basically, he's insulting the orcs in Elvish. Is the gist of it, and he's popping their face. And Arondir turns around and is like, "No, I'll cut the tree down. Like I will. Like I'm not letting any. I don't want to see this again. I want to deal with this again. I will cut down the tree."
Yeah.
So he climbs up, and actually, I feel like he's taking this chance to see above the trench line, which is what they had discussed at the beginning, to kind of see what was going on. So he could look around and realize how much devastation they've caused to this land so far.
Yeah, he takes this moment to say "anin absence" or some. I mean, my Elvish pronunciation is probably very wrong, but it's essentially asking the tree for forgiveness, right?
Yes. Yeah. Asking nature for forgiveness for cutting down its beauty,
which I feel was very elven. So again, good. I don't know about pro. I don't know. I don't feel strongly enough in favor of these things to give them a pro.
No, and I feel like it all just kind of links in together. It's not enough of a new point. It's still just the after point of what we've just done. So no pro for this. We're still at 4-2, because that's kind of when it kind of cuts then, and we come back to them later in the episode.
Yeah, when we come back, it just, I mean, like, I'm assuming we've missed some kind of conversation between the elves here, but they've decided to start a fight.
Yeah, it all starts off with like kicking up the chains, and slow motion starts getting brought out, and it's probably my biggest. Okay, because I know people will kick off if I say this. I say it's my biggest gripe with the show in terms of filmmaking. So I'm ignoring the lore parts now. In terms of filmmaking, is the action scenes involving elves. We'll come to men ones in a bit because they're slightly different, but the ones with elves in, they're a bit almost too fantastic at this point. There's too many Legolas type moments, which I'm not very keen on. Like the whole, maybe it's the slow motion, the overuse of that. It might be.
We'll get the slow motion soon.
Yeah, it might be that. But yeah, the kicking up the chain, knocking the one orc back, I kind of give one or two, like a little moment of that. Then you have a few points where they start kind of fighting back and forth. And they're all just, everyone in there, the elves and the humans who are there trying to cut their chains. And every time orcs come out, they're basically trying to unhood them so that they get hit by the stun. So basically trying to buy themselves some time.
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing for me here. So, some of these fantastical moments, which it's a fantasy series, I get it. It's just a little bit too much already. Some bits though are cool. Like there's the bit where Arondir is trying to climb away, and the orcs pull him back on the chain, and he grabs a tree branch. Like it was, like again, the overuse of slow mo is a bit too much, but it's kind of cool choreography. Like no last ditch effort to grab something, and boom, it works. And elves are supposed to be badass.
Yes. So yeah, it is hard because if it's used more and we become more accustomed to it in this world, it won't seem as extreme. Whereas the Lord of the Rings movies built them to be a lot more based in realism, like we know. Those moments did seem more over the top, where I feel like they're like, what's the word? My mind's just gone blank for a minute.
I don't know.
Literally just gone blank. My halfway through a thought, then my mind's just gone.
Sorry, I was reading a comment. We're saying we're gonna ignore comments, but Pablo says, guys, come on, did you actually say it's a positive how the orcs react to the sunlight? Why are you carrying Amazon's water? What do you mean? To be fair, we've been pretty negative for most of our reviews. Yeah, orcs should be.
Yeah, orcs don't like sunlight. Yeah. It's a big thing, and a really big thing in the Third Age when Saruman creates the fighting Urukai who can travel in daylight. Everything before that, they could not fight under direct sunlight. That's a big thing against them. Even when it came to the battles in the Third Age, Sauron basically had to have Mount Doom erupt and send like thick smoke to cover the sun as they marched to Gondor. So yeah, no, personally, like that was a good thing.
Yeah.
If they just ignored that and let them walk around wherever, that would have been a bigger, like, unhappy moment.
Yeah, I agree. So there we go. Okay, what is going on this computer, dude?
I don't know what you're doing.
I just can't click anywhere. Sorry, guys, we're having some technical issues. Let's just move on to the warg.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, they fight a bit. In the end, the orcs give up and release little pug warg that we get to see.
Warg.
Warg with a pug face. Yeah, it's. I don't really know what they were thinking about the design for this.
It's like the Disney Star Wars thing. Like everything's got to be cute so it can sell toys, but they're not even selling toys. So I don't really know. But the warg looked like a pug.
Like,
and
I had a moment when it was first introduced. I kind of showed you that. I was like, I felt like stop motion to me, the way it was moving. You didn't think that as much,
No,
so
I
it might
didn't
just
think
be me. But yeah, I felt like there was a bit of stop motion in there, just the way it was kind of like jittery. Like
I think it was just quite bad CG.
yeah, it's almost like the frame rates didn't match up. It
Yeah,
was slightly.
that's what it felt like. Yeah. To be honest, the CG is one thing in this show so far that I have not been able to criticize in any manner until this scene.
Yes,
I did not like it.
but we did have a big point of saying it though. We haven't mentioned it yet today, but the first 2 episodes were basically a big pitch, a big pilot, filmed separately to sell the show. And from then on, for the rest of them, there was a different like team directing. Sorry, there was a slightly different team with it all. So we were saying we might get a completely different feel from episodes 3 to 8 than we would from 1 and 2.
Yeah.
It may be the case with some of the special effects as well, that they didn't have the same teams working on them because it was a before and after COVID thing.
I don't think
a lot of it.
Yeah, true. But
So
I think it's more of a case of episodes 1 and 2. They had a 5-month break in productions. They had a lot longer to work on episodes 1 and 2 than they did 3. So especially that prologue sequence, I bet they will work on that for a long time.
But at the same time, something like the face of a warg isn't something that should be affected in that.
True, up close, like it looked good, like it looked kind of real and nasty, and yeah, like it looked okay. It was just I don't particularly like the design choice and some of the movement that was computer generated. It was odd, especially with the spear, which we'll get to in a second. But before that happens, they released the warg. Oh, I should also point out that they made it pretty clear that it was a female warg.
Oh, yes, you did. Yeah.
It had lots of dangly nipples, lack of a better descriptive term. So not that that's a con or anything, but not a pro either. It's just odd. And then it was Revion that seems to get to safety, gets free, gets over the little mound, and then Azarondir chases him. Turns around to reveal an arrow has pierced his chest. It was quite a cool little reveal, actually. Quite a cool little death.
Yeah, that one was well done. If all else fails in Middle Earth, shoot him with an arrow seems to be a way to have a good death. Yeah, it was that good moment, like where he did kind of look back, and it was like, oh, is he gonna try actually go back and try and save him? And it's like, well, no, they said if one person gets up there, they go. They get help, and then they'll come back with an army. He didn't get very far.
No. What did happen with this book, though, is it munched on a few people. And again, going back to them not being afraid to show us the brutality of this world, it's ripping some guts out and stuff. I'll give a pro for that, but a con for just the warg in general. The design of the warg.
Did we give a con for the battle scenes?
No, we didn't.
So there's 2 cons and 1 more pro.
Yeah.
So we're currently at 5-4 pros to cons.
Yeah. Can I give... I can't really give another con for the butterfly twist, can I?
No, that's involved in all action.
Okay, so then the final thing is...
Actually, no, finish this first, then we'll...
Yeah, the final thing then is the spear that hits the warg to kill it. The movement was so off.
Yeah, it felt like it just hadn't been rendered properly. I don't even know.
It was just, they seemed to get their physics off a little bit. It just didn't seem right. There was the impact of the spear, and it kind of I don't know. It just, when something doesn't look right and your eyes go, eh?
Yeah.
What did I just watch? It was that sort of moment. It wasn't right at all. But we've already given a con for the bad CG of the warg's movement, so we'll leave it at that. So that brings Arondia's storyline to a close. Now, we gave a con for the Harfoots in general. We're going to go pro or con for this storyline in general.
Well, we still got the last bit with Adar yet.
Oh, yeah, of course. Final thing is they bring Adar just before they go to kill Arondia. One of the orcs says, no, take him to Adar. So we get like a shot in the trailer, which we saw. I very much thought, oh, that's a shot of Sauron. So the orcs are like moving back and bowing down. You see the close up of this gauntlet on the hand, and it looks very evil. It looks very Sauron. But now we know that it's Adar. And I thought it was a cool introduction, but sadly we didn't get to see his face.
Yeah,
we did, but it was that focus.
Yeah, it really frustrated me, to be honest, because they called the episode title Adar, and we don't even get to see him. Okay, yeah, I get it's the build up of who is this mysterious being, blah blah blah, but it's just a simple thing as an episode name. I was just like, this the episode's mostly about Numenor. So why call it Adar if you're not even going to show him? It was just a completely not that important point, but another one which I'm just a bit like, don't quite understand the decision making behind it.
No,
but we did have a look, and we paused it on the blurry face of Adar, and we do feel like it looks like he does have pointy ears. Now, we're not sure if this has been confirmed or not somewhere, but he must be an elf then. Because you thought that they may have confirmed this before, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was confirmed that he's a corrupted elf of some sort.
Yeah, but I don't remember. So in my head, I was like, is it? Isn't it? But yeah, it looks like he could well be. Which obviously could then point to the theories of Sauron disguising himself in the body like an elf, like he would do as Anatar and stuff. It's a possibility is hinting more towards that again, whether that's to throw us off the scent for something else, or whether it's actually the way they're going to go. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, it's funny because during the watch party, we were with the comments kind of theorizing that perhaps he goes on to become Witch King, but obviously if he's an elf, he can't be.
Yeah, can't be.
The 9 men got a ring. So
that kind of sums up the Southlands story.
It does. There was a lot to con in this storyline, but I'm so pleased with how they've handled the orcs, which is a really big deal that I feel like overall I want to give this a pro.
Yeah, I feel like the warg wasn't great, but I feel like we've picked on that a lot more than we've the good of the orcs was better than the bad of the warg, in my opinion.
I agree.
So I feel like overall it's just a lot easier to complain about these things. So that's another pro then for the overall story.
Yeah.
Although one thing I do want to bring up quickly before we move on to the Galadriel, Halbrand, Numenor story, is one thing we discussed earlier, and I'd like to just put it out there in the open as well. Is we kind of thought of an idea of how they could have introduced short hair elves into this story without doing it the way they did.
Yes, because the filmmakers clearly want to have short-haired elves for some reason.
Yes, and we kind of thought, well, it's perfect. Elves are getting captured. They're basically being enslaved here. And if all elves have long hair, that's part of the majestic magicalness of them. So why not have the orcs cut their hair in that way? Yeah. And then it doesn't need to be clean. It's just, it's an insult, basically.
Yeah.
It's, it's like a samurai having their ponytail cut off type thing.
It's just disrespect.
Yeah. So that could have been a great way to make it happen, but make it work story-wise.
Yeah, not just have them as a weird design choice and doing it because of... It almost feels like they've made that choice because it's like, well, we own the rights, we can do what we want.
Yeah, I feel like one of the biggest reasons has to be because the only distinguishable features that differentiate a man and an elf are their ears. So short hair...
to show off the ears.
Yeah, so short hair just makes that a lot easier to do. That's the only reason I can really think.
Yeah. Same.
Apart from going,
I've said this before. I don't like the short hair decision, but it's not something I'm going to dislike the show over, if that makes sense. It's not a make or break decision for me, but I would definitely prefer long hair. Okay, so we're going to move into the final storyline of the episode now, which is, of course, the introduction of Numenor. We are seeing many, many comments come in, and we're not ignoring them, but we want to kind of get through all this first without getting distracted and answering questions. So I promise you, as soon as we get through this storyline, we will get into the comments and chat. So obviously this storyline begins with Galadriel waking up on a boat.
Yes, there's the whole part with a bowl of food, and Halbrand's like, well, she asks if they've been captured, kind of thing. He's like, the food's not poison, if that's what you're asking. Starting off with the charismatic look at Halbrand in this episode. But they very quickly get introduced to Elendil, played by Lloyd Owen, who is just phenomenal.
Yeah, let's just give a pro for Lloyd Owen from the start. However, I will say that his first few lines in his introduction felt a little bit wooden.
See, I didn't think it was too bad. I thought it more
I think
was
it's just that scene, that boat scene. It was a little bit stale for me.
I just took it more as he was giving nothing to these people. He's just like an alpha's turned up on his boat. He was giving nothing away.
Maybe, yeah.
Whereas
but that scene in general just felt a little bit stale to me. But as the episode went on, I just liked him more and more. So yeah, I'm just saying my thoughts.
Okay.
Fall on them, they get taken to Numenor.
I'm giving a pro straight away for this.
For Numenor.
Oh yeah.
Oh hell yeah. Numenor. Can we give two? All right, I gotta give one for the visuals because let's be honest, it looked incredible. I had major Assassin's Creed vibes for some reason. But also, I think the Numenor theme, the soundtrack, is the best soundtrack.
I would disagree.
Would you?
I'd still say Khazad-dûm.
I don't know. The Numenor one gets stuck in my head. It's so good. So catchy.
I think that just sums us up, though, as people a bit more.
yeah. But either way, it's a great song. So I think 2 pros there. 1 for the visuals, 1 for the music. You agree?
Okay, so that's 1 more. So at the moment, we are 9 pros, 4 cons, if anyone is trying to keep up.
We then have a bit of a history lesson with Galadriel, and she mentions kind of how Numenor came to men, I guess, came to the Numenorians. She mentions the Valar, which is cool. I wasn't sure we were going to get any mentions of the Valar in this show, but we did. Not sure I'm going to give it a pro, but it's nice to hear. We then got Elendil basically took the 2 strangers, the elf and the man, to the hall where Tarmiriel and Farazon were, and got a little comedic scene, I guess, here. Which this is the sort of comedy that I like in this sort of show.
Yes, it's again, we've said it before, we'll say it again. It's another one of these scenes that, in the trailers, looked out of place and dodgy. In the way it's built up in the show, it worked.
Context.
Yes.
But the comedic line here is Halbrand tells Galadriel that she should kneel. So she goes to kneel, and Miriel says, nobody kneels in Numenor. He just turns to her and says, sorry. It's just done in quite a funny way. It's like really gentle humor, but it worked. It was lighthearted. Where do we go from there?
Then we go on. So basically, they're asked to introduce themselves, and Galadriel gives her, I am Galadriel, and the title she gives
leader of the Western armies, and
all of that. And it felt there's that scene from Game of Thrones. If you know it, you know Ed Daenerys gives all the titles, and it's almost that point when people start rolling their eyes in the show, like the characters do, because of how many titles she ends up giving herself. And it's almost like one of those moments of like, you're Galadriel, you don't really need to say that much. And it felt like a bit of a weird one to me.
It didn't feel very Galadriel to me.
Yeah, it felt a bit too like I'm showing off for her.
Yeah.
So
there's a comment there that says Galadriel's being childish. You got to admit that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not digging Galadriel as a character in this. I love Galadriel as a character.
Yeah.
And I really like Morfydd Clark. She's fantastic. But I'm just not. Why can't she be a new character?
Yeah. Like, I understand that, like, people are saying, why isn't she the Galadriel from the Lord of the Rings? It's like, you can expect character development over 5 seasons of a show.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't expect it to be exactly the same. It's just the fact that she is so different to what everyone knows of Galadriel as a being. It's what's more off-putting. It's like, you could accept smaller changes and understand how she would become that person, but they're really asking us to suspend a lot of disbelief at this point, at least for the people who know more about her as a character. But yes. Anyway, don't know if that's really con-worthy. Just for
no, I wouldn't. No,
say we wouldn't give a pro for the comedy bit. We won't give a con for the naming bit.
Yeah.
And then one of the bits I did like was the confrontation as such. where they talk about how they got the island. Where Galadriel's like, well, you were once friends with elves, and you basically, because your ancestors helped us, it was given to you as a gift. Like, you should thank us and be like welcoming to us because we were all good. And Muriel's well, actually no, we paid the price to get this island. We sacrificed so many of our kin, so many of our people died. It's their blood that paid for this island, not because we were friends with elves. It's we earned the right of this island, which I think is a pretty fair way to see it as well, because you have Galadriel, who understands and would have been around for the first arrival of Numenor at the very beginning, and then you have all the Numenorians here who have only existed in their short amount of time, and all that part of it when it first got made is just stories, and they've been corrupted over time. There's the Kingsmen at this point who have gone against the ways, they resist in the ban of the Valar and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's very understandable why they would feel this way. I'm not sure it's been set up enough yet in the show itself, but from background knowledge, I appreciate where they're kind of coming up with that relationship.
Are you going pro with that? Or where are you going with that?
Again, is struggling to figure out if that's pro worthy or if it's just a nice point in the subtext of what they're talking about. I'm not going to pro, because otherwise we're going to start pro and con in every single line.
True.
And it might get a bit too picky.
Yeah. So where are we at?
So then we have so from that it basically ends up being that they're allowed to stay for a couple of days thanks to Halbrand's gesture. Galadriel's getting all wound up, and Halbrand basically cuts the tension and says, "Oh, how about you just give us a few days, think about our offer, and we'll just kind of stay and chill," because he wants to go wandering, which we'll get to in a minute. And in the end, Farazan says, "Hey, well, you can stay. You'll be our guest. You just can't leave the grounds of the main part." Sorry, the word escapes me.
It's like courtyard or something.
Yeah. So basically, they're prisoners, but not prisoners. And then Farazan turns to Muriel and talks about, "We dare not invite your father's cloud back overhead." Now, assuming Muriel's father is the right father, from it would be Tar Palantir, who was the king before her. We get a few hints at him throughout the episode, so we'll kind of come back to him a bit more in a minute, I think. But in general, he was the first king in a long time who wished to go back to being on the good side of the Valar and friends of the Elves, whereas many generations, I think Muriel says it in the show, great-great-grandfather, something like that, was the last one to let an elf on the land.
I'm sure she said something like the great-grandfather of my grandfather.
I can't.
Way of saying it.
Yeah, but either way, generations ago. And basically Tar Palantir was the first one to want to go back to the old ways, not this corrupted ways. But anyway, we'll come back to more of that in a bit.
Well, I feel like it's this section here where, and don't get me wrong, I'm loving Numenor, I'm loving the characters so far, but it was this section where they state, yes, you can be our guests on this island, but you can't leave the palace or whatever it was. And then from that point on, it's just some weird decisions, story and script-wise. Let's go to the moment where Halbrand is at a bar. He's drinking.
Yes. We skip into that bit, are we?
What do we miss?
We have the old bit with Isildur first, if we're doing it in order.
Okay, let's do Isildur first then.
Okay. So we end up getting to the boat, and we see Isildur on there, and he basically, some guy goes to hold a rope and gets almost swept out to sea. And there were a couple of nice little lore hints, not hints, Easter eggs, I guess, as such. The guy who gets caught on the rope is called Valandil, which is actually the name of Isildur's youngest son later on, which is cool. I don't know if that's one of his great friends and he ends up naming him after him, or if it's just a completely irrelevant, hey, it was his son's name, so let's call this guy it. So it's said in the show.
I hope it's not. I'm assuming that Valandil will at some point die. He's Isildur's best friend. And,
if it's something like that, I would like that friendship. I
think that would be great. If it's just they've named him that because it's a name within Numenorians, that would be stupid.
Yeah, but I thought that was a nice little Easter egg. There's actually another one is after they get off, and they do the sea is always right chant, which we'll come back to in a second. You hear another guy called in the background, and there's someone called Imrahil, which
I didn't plug that.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, there's Prince Imrahil of Dol Amroth, who fights as a part of the Battle of the Pelennor Fields and the Siege of Gondor. So it's a nice little hint to that and where that name probably came down from. Again, don't know if there's any purpose hints or if these are just names they've taken because they exist within those people.
Yeah, well, we know that there's names aren't unique in Middle-earth, right? In fact,
No.
it's even kind of alluded to in this episode. I think Miriel says to Elendil, like, Elendil, that's not a very common name.
Yeah.
She says something like that. So I think these are just cool little hints.
Yeah, and Elendil was named in the writings after a Tar Elendil from many, many years before, who was a previous king, which is kind of why he got his name. So yeah, it's not common, but it was a previous name. So
yeah. So let's talk about Isildur in general then. Okay. How do you feel about the character?
Well, they've made him into a sailor, which at this point I've got no reason to be against. It's not really said he wasn't. He just wasn't really like a captain as such. Like someone like Farazon, he was known to sail to the lands and fight in wars and like build himself up. Where, it's a weird one, but I can't really go for or against that at this point.
No, I'll tell you something I can go against. That's the introduction of Aerion.
Yeah, I mean, what the what? Kind of saying this after when we went off from the live stream earlier is why introduce a daughter when he's got 2 sons?
Yeah,
you don't need to introduce a new kid into this. If you want to change, even if you want to change one of the sons slightly, which I feel like they have in a way anyway, why do you need to introduce a 3rd sibling? I mean, okay, we're kind of going to skip forward a bit. Let's skip forward a bit just to talk about her because okay, so she ends up being later on she gets accepted into an apprenticeship where it was for the building,
like shipbuilding or something, builders guild or something.
Yeah, whatever it was. So you see the builders guild, which to me is just a massive hint that they're going to make her be behind the ships that they build for when the faithful escape Numenor when there is the drowning. So whether she is making them physically or whether she is going to be in charge of letting them all onto the boats for that final escape, we'll come to find out. But I feel like that is literally the purpose she's going to be playing in this.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just don't understand it. I don't get why she's there. I may have missed something really obvious. There might be some reason for it.
No,
I just don't understand.
I'm pretty sure that that's going to be pretty much it. They're probably introducing her. They probably needed some kind of story plot that got them towards someone having the ability to build, and they thought, where's her importance or where's that person's importance? Let's just make her a relative. I feel like that's all they've gone with. I am not particularly happy with it. I want to give it a con.
Yeah.
I like the actress.
Yeah.
She gave off Emma Watson vibes, but she was fine. It's nothing against the actress. I just don't understand the need to introduce.
Okay, we're giving a con for this. Yeah, because obviously the other part is that we weren't sure because there hadn't really been any hints at Anarion at all before the show. So it was almost one of those points of like, have they just changed Anarion into a sister rather than a brother?
But then they bring him up.
But then they do bring him up. So it's a bit like, Okay, not going to hang on that point for too long, but kind of said my point. Anyway, let's go back.
So let's skip ahead. Yeah, let's go to when Halbrand is in the bar. Is that the next section?
Where were we? So we had the sea is always right thing. That was a weird one.
Yeah, that was odd.
Oh yeah, no. So you have Elendil talking to Miriel. Yeah, this is basically where
she gives him the task of basically watching over Galadriel.
Yeah.
She gives him a sword and says, I have a job for you. And it becomes apparent that job is to look over Galadriel. This is where we also learn about his name. And his name translates to elf friend.
Yes.
It's almost planting a seed of distrust there, if you ask me. Or almost getting him to prove himself.
Yes. And it's kind of funny because then the next bit is where Galadriel's like trying to escape with more Assassin's Creed vibes in a way. And then Elendil's kind of stood there waiting, like, I can't let you go. And I always find like a nice little moment where Elendil's like, she gave this to me as a punishment, but I don't see how it's a punishment because he has no issues with the elves.
There's a comment here which didn't even occur to me, if I'm honest. I like this. Yes. Was that supposed to be Anduril?
I don't
think so.
I don't believe so. But
I wouldn't put it past them though. It was like a big close up on it,
Yeah,
so who knows?
interesting.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on from that bit. It's the section where Halbrand is suddenly in the bar.
No. You skipped a very important scene.
What bit was in?
Slow motion horses.
That was first.
Yes. I'm not even gonna stay on this scene. It was stupid. It was pointless. They didn't need to do it. They made them look weird. At points, I didn't even think she looked like her anymore. I just don't know why it was there. I would have rather a shorter episode. I would have rather spend more time somewhere else.
Like, learn from The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian doesn't go, every episode needs to be an hour. It's more, every episode needs to be as long as the story needs it to be. You know what I mean? And I think that's the case here. It's almost like they put in these slow-mo sections to expand the length of the episode, which I massively disagree with. The shots were nice, but unbelievably unnecessary. Can we please add a comment?
Yep, already added.
Good.
Currently 9-6 pros.
Uh-oh. It's catching up. Stupid slow-mo. Can we move on to the bar scene now?
Yes, we actually
I've tried
can
like
now.
5 times.
I know, but now we've actually reached it.
So does it start with him trying to get a job, if I remember right?
Yeah.
First?
Yes. Yeah, because he goes into the forge, talks to the guy, and basically like, look, I will do anything for free. I just want to make
a clean slate.
Yeah, I basically want to make weapons here, and you guys are the best. I basically want to learn from the best, and I want to prove that I'm as good as you guys, and I can learn the art, which is a bit suspicious at this point. This very much is planting those Sauron seeds at this point for what he's trying to do. But then it's basically like the guy's like, oh no, you need this what you call it? No, it's not sigil. What you call it?
Sort of
crest.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need the guild crest to even be allowed to lift up anything. You can't even shovel coal in here without one of these. So now we get into the bar.
Yeah, hey, finally. And this was one of those story moments that bugged me. He has just come off a wrecked ship, correct?
Correct.
The rest of his shipmates died, correct?
Correct.
He had pretty much nothing on him, correct?
Correct. I feel like I'm in court. Yes, Your Honor.
I'm a lawyer. But yet somehow he's buying everyone around.
Correct.
What? WTF? Like what? Where's his money come from? He was shipwrecked with nothing.
Yeah.
Then he was told he couldn't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
And now he has loads of money, enough to buy everyone.
It's one of those. Like, I'm at no point is this ever said in the show, but in my head canon now, is I've just gone, he's obviously not afraid to steal stuff. He's probably just stolen money.
Yeah.
But that's never set up. It's never shown. There's never any hint of it. So it makes no sense. I feel like they might have had a scene where he, like, almost Jack Sparrow-esque from Pirates, like, walks along, picks up a bag, and, like, yep, okay, in my
Either that
pocket.
or he did just have something on him. But it was just a bit weird.
But he couldn't have, because they were like, yeah. So, or even if he'd stolen something back on the boat when they were first when he was, like, if he'd given the ball to Galadriel and kind of looked to the side and saw some coins, it was like, like, it's just like, it takes a second to show that, and it would have set that up fine. But yes, it almost
didn't need setting up. It just, I don't know, it was just jarring. I don't know. Yeah. Weird. I kind of want to give that.
I'm going to give that a con, because that was poorly set
I don't know
up.
if you guys would agree with that, but I would consider that bad writing.
Yes.
Which is a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, for the most part, we've stuck by the writing, but things like that are disappointing. I feel like it's like, it's a little thing, but it's a poor excuse. You can't just be like, oh, well, it's a little thing, let's ignore it. No, these things add up.
Yeah.
You know? So I think they need to pay a bit more attention to that. Okay. From that, then, he drinks with the guys, he steals one of the crests and is on his way, but they realize, they come after him, and they go to attack him, but he kind of fights back and kicks the crap out of them, basically. Again, we have another example here of them not being afraid to show violence, and there's a really gruesome close-up scene of the forearm bone snapping, which I loved.
This is the one which kind of wanted to come back to from earlier, where the fight scenes with the elves are just over the top, but I feel like they've done a much better job with just men.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, we mentioned it in the other episode with the orc in the house with Bronwyn and Theo. That was done quite well. It was done more gritty, it was done more realistic. Same kind of one with this, where it was all a little bit more realistic. There was, although there's always a bit of it, there was less of the everyone just waits in a line while there's 4 of them. It actually looked like there was some thought behind getting them one-on-one, and you hit one, you go back, and then like hitting the throat to kind of deal with the bigger guy as opposed to just knocking the big one out. Little bits like that. Like I feel like it was much more thought out, and it was done a lot better.
Yeah.
Where as opposed to just some Superman punch and he knocks out the biggest guy and they all go, "Oh no!" Like I liked it.
You can give it a pro if you want, or
I'm going to give it a pro because I gave a con to the other one.
Okay,
I feel like that makes it fair.
On from this, then. Oh, there was something happened here with. Was it this moment where someone called him something? I have a memory of this from the watch party. Someone bringing it up.
A low man. They're called. He gets called.
Okay, well,
he gets called a low man, and then he like smashes the guy's head against the wall, and he's like, "You can call me Halbrand."
Oh right, okay, that's pretty badass.
I picture that like CSI, like.
Yeah. Same.
If you've seen the show, you'll get it. If you haven't, I'm sorry.
From here, then we move on to Galadriel and Elendil in the Hall of Lore. Very cool, and we finally get a bit of explanation here about Elros.
Yes, because we were talking about this before, as we had no idea what the deal was with Elros and how Galadriel seemed less knowledgeable. I mean, they kind of try to make like more. They try to make that point right. I feel in this episode, actually, if we go back, where she talks about like they haven't let owls on these shores for what them is like 5-6 generations or whatever it actually is. Yeah, owls. They're not allowed to fly there. Yeah. So and then it's like, oh well, why not? And she actually said, well, now we'll find out. So basically, they were stopped arriving there, and they were never told. So it gives them a reason why she might not consider it an option, for one, and why she might not know much about it, because even she says like it's grown so much since the last time an elf stood on those lands.
Yeah.
So I feel like they kind of fixed that reason in a way without making it obvious, and yeah, I feel like they actually did an okay job with kind of coming back to that.
I agree. We got to see the tapestry.
Yes.
Which showed Elrond and Elros. I like that they showed that. I kind of felt it just looked cartoony, though. I know you were like, oh yeah, it's tapestry out there.
Yeah, but I feel like if you see any of those old-fashioned things, I feel like they always look a bit unphotorealistic.
I still don't know how I feel about Elrond and Galadriel's relationship. It's just, not that I think there's any kind of like sexual tension or anything going on like that. That would be a major con. But it's just that they're just like good mates. But she's supposed to be his mother-in-law.
Eventually.
Yeah. I know.
He's playing the long game, planning ahead. It's yeah.
Did we cover this? Did we cover that then when you were
no,
talking?
we did not.
So essentially, it's mentioned by Elendil that it's because of the last king. There's a whole confusion here. Like the last king, who we're assuming is Palantir, was essentially faithful to the elves.
Yes,
he was pushed out because of it.
Yeah, he wanted to go back, and basically they pushed him out. And it sounds more like the faithful, so Elendil and his side, basically took him away and hid him for his safety, by the sounds of it. Kind of put him somewhere and went, like, look, if you stay here, they will kill you. So how about you come away and actually keep your life?
Yeah, and he's still going to be there somewhere. And I think that they're kind of planting the seeds now for a split between the King's men and the faithful.
Yeah.
Eventually, we'll probably... Oh, I'm assuming at some point we'll see the faithful move towards Middle-earth and found Gondor and Arnor. We're getting there. Okay, we then find that... Well, Elendil finds an account of a human spy from an enemy dungeon, and it reveals that there are plans to be activated if Morgoth is ever defeated.
Yeah, it's one of these as well, like because obviously this is in the Hall of Lore and all of that. And when they get all these things, do they just put them on a shelf and not look at them? Like, has the Lore Master not ever read this and gone, should I tell anyone that there's like this big plan? If but it's just, I mean, whenever there's those big libraries in any kind of fantasy thing, is that way. The librarians, the people the masters, the lore masters, they just look after the stuff. They don't really get involved with anything. Yeah, it's one of those points. It's like the lore master going, oh, I could have told you that.
Yeah, it's just again, I kind of feel like it's lazy storytelling. The thing is, the problem is we're looking at this in so much detail. I feel like I could do this with any show.
Yeah, well, if anyone knows the channel Cinema Sins or TV Sins, like that's how they make their channel, is by picking apart every little detail. And I feel like it's just because we are such fans of Tolkien that we can pick it apart in every. We can still enjoy it, but we can pick apart all these little details, and just like we would love the perfect show. We would love the perfect like visual storytelling of those stories that he wrote. It's just not going to work that way.
It's never going to happen
in real life. Like people won't. No studio is going to want to make that and spend their money on it unless it's a non-profit fan thing. Like it's not going to happen with these big studios who will actually
because
make it.
It doesn't appeal to a wider audience.
No,
the mainstream audience.
Yeah, like
I'm sure we'd love it.
Yeah, we would absolutely love it, and everyone who's a fan would watch it countless times. But in terms of business, they'll never make their money back. So sadly, and I hate to say it, it's just not going to happen unless you really have a true fan at the top of it all who goes, I don't want to make money off this. I just want to see my dream come to life.
Yeah.
Which, sadly, most people get to that position because they won't.
Back to the point at hand.
Yes.
Lazy storytelling again. The Lore Master, whoever keeps all these scrolls and stuff and this information, should have known what was going on. And yeah, there's a plan. Morgoth's been defeated, but there is a backup plan. It's right here. So someone should have known about that. A bit lazy, but never mind. We find out the information now with Galadriel. She states, it's worse than I ever imagined. Southlands are in trouble. We also find out here that the sigil, that the mark that Sauron has been leaving, is not just a symbol. It's actually a map, essentially, of Mordor.
Yeah.
People have theorized this for a few weeks now. Ever since we've kind of seen that, I've seen a few people saying that shape is very similar to the map of Mordor.
Yeah. I suppose it's been posted online. I hadn't actually seen that one, so that was a newer one to me, and it seems really obvious now. But yeah, that's kind of where that bit ends, because they're like, oh no, it's in danger. And then we cut back to Elendil, Isildur, and Earion.
Something like that.
Yeah, where they're all talking, they're having a little family bicker as such. And Arion gets mentioned here, where it's kind of like an off, like Isildur's saying about deferring for a year from his trials.
I'm trying to think now. Have we seen a casting of an Arion?
No, I don't think so. That's what I mean. I think that's why we weren't sure if he was even in the show. Yeah, and he kind of gets that, like, Elendil's like, well, what's your brother got to do with this? Kind of thing. Which is, the way they've set up that relationship to me, makes it feel like Anarion should be the older brother.
Yeah.
But he's the younger one. Unless I'm forgetting. I swear he's the younger one. So I feel like the way they've set up that relationship makes it feel like it's the other way around. Yeah, so it's a bit of a weird one. And then this is where we hear about the thing we mentioned earlier of Earion gets her apprenticeship. And there's also the talk of basically, I can't remember exactly why, but the western shores of Numenor, and I think it's basically, was it Isildur wanted to go there and have a look or something?
Yeah.
And Elendil's basically like, well, no, we don't. Like, there's nothing to see there. Basically, is the whole idea, which we'll kind of come back to now with Tar Palantir, is in the writings, he basically took himself to the west so he could try and see Valinor. But obviously, at this point, they've set up the cloud barrier, whatever, so you can't actually see it anymore, where at one point you could. So he basically goes there the hope that one day it'll like reveal itself again and the ban will be lifted and that they can actually go there. And that's kind of, I'm guessing, what they're hinting at is they're kind of trying to reconnect that relationship, and they're going to bring, well, it feels like they're going to bring Tar Palantir into this.
They will, I think. They have.
Whether in a massive role or in like a, like, I don't kind of know what age he would be in this.
I
Whether
just
they
feel like
consider him like old man, or whether he'll be like,
I'm not sure, but I think there'll be something along the lines of like his death will inspire Elendil to lead the faithful.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
So now we go on to Galadriel finding Halbrand in jail.
Yeah.
So again, it's similar to Halbrand having loads of money. Like, they've been banned to just the palace. They're not prisoners; they're guests. But it's kind of, it's like, yeah, you're prisoners, but you're also my guest. It's kind of that sort of thing, And she's allowed to just walk into the jail. No guards.
It's just,
hi mate, how's it going? Fair enough. Again, maybe lazy storytelling. I don't know. We get a little bit of back and forth here now, and Galadriel kind of shows that she's found the symbol that's on Halbrand's necklace, pendant, and it's stated that is essentially the symbol of the last king of Southlands.
Yeah, it's not quite clear like it's actually directly meant like the Southlands, or if it's like Harrod or Rune, or if it's somewhere in particular, or whether it's it's kind of a bit vague. But it's just built up to be very Aragornish, very the resistant king who doesn't want his title, but he's going to have to take the title to lead his people, kind of thing. And it's a bit like, are you just trying to tell Aragorn's story again in your own show, or
I really hope not.
Is there something more that's going to come from this? Like, again, he could end up becoming the king who gets corrupted and becomes a Nazgul / Witch King / Kamal, potentially. But
yeah, Halbrand did say he took it from a dead man, but I think that's him just trying to hide from his destiny. Again, similar to Aragorn. I've seen lots of comments about where's all the sex, because there was supposed to be sex. That's not the case. They hired like nudity coordinators or something. That could mean anything.
Yeah, nudity coordinators, the whole thing that everything kicked off about, they would get used for anything basically that could involve some skin. So, like, our thoughts before the show came out was most likely it'll be coming to when there's something like
sacrifices.
Yeah, sacrifices in the cult of Malk or something like that, where people maybe not wearing much in a not sexual kind of situation.
I really don't think
you would still need someone of that job role there for those. So it doesn't mean sex. It doesn't mean anything like that. I mean, it can, but it doesn't directly mean if that is there will be sex. So at the moment, we might just not have any at all.
Yeah. The Crawling Chaos. Oh, I'm getting distracted by comments.
Yeah, that's a good point by Jack, actually, saying there's a very good chance there was one hired for the stranger when he rocked up in the meteor. Because obviously he turned up in the fetal position wearing nothing, or did he have like a little something?
A little like Tarzan rag.
But yeah, but for example, something like that, there would be one on set for that. So that's just an example.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay.
So now it's the very last scene of the episode now. So we're nearly there. And we see Miriel climbing up the tower. And when she kind of comes up and speaks to someone off camera and goes, "It is here, Father." Now, we know from the trailers and stuff that Miriel has one of the Palantir. So at this point, we don't know if she's talking to potentially her dad, who's now shut in this tower, which could be where he actually is, or if she's maybe potentially talking into the Palantir, and Tar Palantir has one of the Palantir somewhere else, and they're communicating with that. Because that's what they were used for initially, was basically telephones, for a better way of describing it.
Yeah.
But however, she says this next line, which is one that kind of confuses me. She goes, "The moment we feared, the elf has arrived." Which, if her father is still Tar Palantir, and Tar Palantir is the Tar Palantir that we know of, I don't know why that would be a fear that they have, because they should have different feelings.
Well, I feel like in some way it is a bit confusing, because I felt like she was almost the anti-Tar Palantir, because she was going more towards, like what she spoke to Elendil, like, are you an elf friend? Are you a friend of the elf? Like, she clearly doesn't trust the elves, but her father did.
Or wanted to.
Yeah, so it's a bit confusing. I'm not saying this is a con, because I feel like they are going to lead this onto a storyline that makes sense. So I'm not going to judge that, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we got through all of this last section with no pros or cons. It's very on the fence.
We gave a few with some lazy writing.
Yeah. So with the whole part with, say then, just to round this section off for a moment, the Elendil Isildur Earian section, any pros or cons in there, really? It's just...
Did we give a con for the sister in general?
We did earlier on, yes.
Okay, then after giving a con for that already, I have no further thoughts.
No, it does something, like, it moves the show along, but it doesn't necessarily change anything.
It doesn't do anything for me, neither positively or negatively.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like that. And then Miriel at the end is just, it's a cliffhanger that you expect at the end of an episode, like every TV show does. So, yeah, I don't really know. But that kind of rounds up our end of our pros and cons, which we have, just before we go on to comments, I believe, unless I've not counted one or two, I think we got to 10 pros, 7 cons.
So this one's just in the lead, which is kind of funny, because after watching this, we were like, oh, this is probably the best episode so far, but that's not the...
No, we'll kind of get onto it in a minute, because we have noticed that Nerd of the Rings is in the house.
What's up, dude?
How's it going? But the question is, who's your money on for Halbrand, Sauron, or Witch King? If I had to say one of those, I would definitely go Witch King.
Yeah, same here.
But I also think, no, I feel like if he's going to be an Asgard, he's probably going to be the Witch King. I like the idea of someone more like Kamal, or even one of the others. Like Kamal second in command, whereas I feel like the Witch King almost needs to be someone from Numenor. Just because of power and such. Whereas someone from the Southlands, I'm less like, is that really going to be the main one? But I'm just hoping not Sauron at this point still.
I will be disappointed if Halbrand is Sauron. I'm not going to lie. All right. Okay. So we've just gone through an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and 11 minutes actually, of going through the pros and cons of the show, and we have pretty much ignored everyone. So
yes. However, just to ignore you for a minute longer, I am so sorry. We will get to your comments now.
A rating.
We haven't done the ratings, so it is your turn to go first in your rating out of 10.
So I gave episode 1 a 7.
Yep.
I gave episode 2 a 9.
Correct.
It's funny because on reflection and second viewings, I think I would change that.
Yes, we were having this discussion before we came on air. Of actually, we want to reassess our scoring.
That's a tough one. I almost want to bring everything down a little. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a hard one because we almost gave scores without enough room to grow.
Yeah, I think I want to give episode 1 a 6. So I'm giving episode 1 lower.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give episode 2 a 7.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also going to give this a 7.
Okay.
I think this was aspects of it were better than episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly upon watching it, I was thinking it was better, but again, upon reflection, going through the pros and cons in detail, there's a lot of things that bug me. Lazy storytelling. So yeah, I'm going a slightly better 7, but 7, I think.
Okay, cool. So say those again. Episode 1, you've gone to a 6.
Yeah.
Episode 2,
7 and 7.
So you've taken them both down a score,
mm-hmm.
and then this one's also a 7.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is on par with episode 2.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. We can't give 0.5s, can we?
No.
Okay, for this episode, I would say it is 7.
Okay.
I do feel like I would bring episode 1 down to... I want to give it a 6.5. I want to give it a 6, but I also want to up it one just for the prologue because of how good that bit was.
I know what you mean,
how much I enjoyed. I thought that bit was so stunning. Like, I feel sad. But then I would probably still give episode 2 an 8 because I got the introduction to Khazad-dûm at the point of being very interested in the Stranger and the Harfoots. In that, I very much enjoyed that episode. So I would say, like, I would probably give this episode a 7.5 if I could give 0.5s because I can't. I'm not going to put it on par with 2. I'm going to take it down 1.
Okay.
So 6, 8, 7.
Fair. There we go. A lot of people saying we're too easily pleased. I disagree. I think we're being quite critical.
I mean, we got people saying this episode was an 8. We got them saying it was.
It's so funny, and this is something we keep talking about amongst ourselves. Like, we'll put up like a poll or on Twitter or on our community tab, and there'll be a bunch of comments, and then one will say, "Why are you wasting your time? This is the worst thing ever." And then literally there'll be a comment from someone else straight after it saying, "This is the best show I've ever seen." It's so split. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Literally, I feel like 50% of people think this is garbage, and 50% think it's fantastic.
This show is Marmite.
Yeah,
it's completely Marmite. You love it or you hate it. And it doesn't seem like you're allowed to be anywhere in the middle. Although I feel like we are kind of sitting slightly on the upper end of the middle.
Yeah, I think this show is good. That's where I'm going with it. It's not amazing. Yeah, that's pretty much my. I think it could be good. I think it could be very good.
It is one of those.
We're still early. We're still world building.
Yeah, that's the issue. Is that it's trying to give it a score of somewhere to go from here. Like, say for example, now the next 5 episodes. Yeah, 5 episodes. Yeah, 4, 5. Yeah, 5. If the next 5 episodes turn out to be perfect television, 10 out of 10, it might bring the score of these down more. It's hard. Like, it's kind of like the trailers and the scenes. without the context of the entire season, it's hard to completely take what happens in these episodes like with full knowledge, because we don't know. It's kind of with a lot of it's kind of the issue Game of Thrones ended up with having is the build up was so good in so many parts, but because the end was so bad, there's so many parts of those build ups that you go back to and go, oh, but that was pointless. Now that was pointless. That was absolutely a complete waste of my time. But at the time, you felt like it was building up to something great, so it felt great. You go back and you go, actually, no, something I gave a 9 now is actually down at like a 5. So our scores may change over time. Is basically where I'm getting to.
Well, let's look at some comments then.
But,
So lots of positive, lots of negative. This show is trash, lore broken, poor dialogue, cheap costumes, 10 million spent on the shot of a white horse. This show is gorgeous covered crap. Come on, the show's not trash. It's lore broken, of course. So with Peter Jackson movies, poor dialogue in places, in other places there's some great dialogue. Cheap costumes, no. If we're talking about the slow-mo white horse, they should have saved some money there. Awful.
I mean, it was a nice horse.
It was.
Well, the one bit of this episode did kind of half make me chuckle was when Theodore's first sees his sister. He's like, hey, go straight to the horse.
Yeah, that was good.
It's like death animal people. Yeah. I appreciate that. Go on, go for the... So, genre art with JB. I would give all 3 episodes 8 out of 10. And that sort of tracks with your overall average of the show. Maybe you guys would rate it slightly lower, 7 out of 10 as an average. This is what I mean. People are very much enjoying it. And I probably would say, 7 out of 10, I think, is about where I'm sitting on average for the show myself.
Yeah, I think 7 out of 10 so far is pretty fair. The horse scene is trash. Yeah, I just don't get that one.
You know, like, sometimes these bad scenes get a lot, like, when you think of a show, they always mention a particular moment of it.
Yeah.
I'm worried that horse scene might now be the Rings of Power. If it's like this is what it's just, it's fluff.
I'm going to highlight this comment. Lord of the Rings is dull at times, but it's absolutely brilliant when you get into the groove with it. You know what? And for a person that spends my days researching and talking about Tolkien content, I'm going to agree with you. There's aspects of the Lord of the Rings books that are boring. Just like this show, there's aspects that are boring. And I'm seeing so many people saying, I couldn't even watch it. It was so boring. It's the same with most fantasy stories. There's aspects of it that aren't for everyone. And that's the same with the books. I'll be straight with you. Since, more recent rereads of the books on, reread, I don't even know what number, 15, I've skipped the songs and poems. Everyone likes different things. It's okay to disagree. Just be nice about it.
The Entmeisters. Entmeister General. Love that name. At least the pacing is speeding up slightly. And that is something that we had a different kind of structure to this episode, which is, in my opinion, I feel like might be a more positive thing, is that they spent a lot more time focusing on a couple of stories, as opposed to jumping around to all of them for more even amounts of time. And I feel like you kind of need to do that as the season goes on. Like, we needed more time with Numenor today. I'm not sure if they'll be spending that much time with a single story in the future, because everything's been established now. I like having longer periods than jumping back and forth a lot. So I do find in general the pacing of like moving the story along is already helping, which is something that we did say after the first 2 episodes might improve quite a bit. So hopefully that does continue, and we don't get any boring moments.
Crawling Chaos says, if it's so trash, then explain why. If you can't, then you don't matter. Should have learned that in school and you were asked to make a real argument. Yeah, it's a good point. There's no good just saying, oh, it's woke trash. Like that doesn't mean anything. Oh, it sucks because it changes the law. No, that doesn't mean anything either. That could potentially make it better for a TV show. We talk about this all the time. The written word doesn't always translate perfectly to screen. So if you think it's rubbish, that's fine. Just say why. We're
more than happy to have a discussion about bad points, but we need points to have a discussion. We can't just have a crap end of done.
Oh, okay. Here you go, James. Did the warg look like stop motion to anyone else? James said that earlier.
Yes, did. I feel like it did, and I need to go find this out now.
It just looked like really bad. It may well have been, and that may be why it looked off. To me, it looked like poorly animated.
I don't understand why they would. Why would they have done stop motion if they did? No. Now someone else has seen it. I want to know, and if anyone does know, let me know, because it really it messed with my brain.
Come on, $1 billion and you give the show 7 out of 10. If the budget was 1 million, what score would you give it then? I'm not thinking about the budget. I'm thinking about the product that we've got. I'm rating it purely on that.
Yeah. And okay, like I'm really not trying to defend Amazon with this whole money thing, but they had to spend that much to get the rights. Like
it was like $500 million just for the rights, right? So.
Yeah. So if you actually break it up to the cost per episode, yes, it's probably still going to be the most expensive show, but not to the extreme. It's not $1 billion on these episodes that we're seeing. Like the cost of the rights that the Tolkien estate charged, like that was such a ridiculous amount in the first place. So it's kind of like, to me, the money side doesn't matter. Like if I enjoy it, if I have a good time watching it, and I don't go away dreading next week, as opposed to what I am, which is actually looking forward to see where they go next week, then I count it as a success. Okay, it might not be my favorite show of all time. It's too early to tell that. But the money side makes no difference to that decision.
There's a comment here. I honestly feel people want to like this show, so I'd be pretty generous with their ratings. If it weren't Lord of the Rings, I think those types would be less generous. I actually think it's the opposite. I think if this wasn't Lord of the Rings, I would be far less critical. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. If there wasn't lore behind it, then so many decisions would just be forgiven straight away. So,
yeah. Good point here. Aurora says, I like the Tom Bombadil chapters and many don't. Yeah.
I actually find it a very, like, Tom Bombadil is a Marmite to me as well.
Yeah.
It's like one read through, I'll go, no, I want to listen. I really want to go through the Tom Bombadil part. Another times I'll go like, nah, skip that completely. Like, it'll just depend on my mood at the time.
Do you guys think that Adar is Sauron on the train for it, so let it burn? I don't. I think they basically said that it is, so it won't be.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's not. I'm kind of just hoping he is just a new character bad guy.
Yeah.
And nothing more in a way. Like, maybe powerful general, whatever, but not anything to that level.
Ronald says, I'm just glad to have another Lord of the Rings on TV. It's not as bad as most people are making it out to be. The Warg looked bad and fit though. Yeah, I agree with you there, my friend.
Yeah, I absolutely hated it because literally before our live stream this morning, we were like, the CG hasn't been too bad. People have said it's cheap. It's not been too bad in these first 2 episodes. And then the 3rd episode, they have some really cheap, fake-looking CG, which is just typical timing.
Yeah. True.
It was 250 million for the rights.
Still $250 million. It's a lot of money. But it was half. If you don't know the lore, no worries yet. If you do, it's just way jarring. Like Patton showing up at the gates of Rome or something. Hold off the barbarians. See, I know the lore pretty well, and I'm accepting that things have to change. Then it's not jarring.
I understand there are moments where, like the moment, say, like with Elendil having a daughter, which I kind of go,
yeah,
what?
Same as Gil-galad allowing passage to Valinor. Like, things like that bug me.
Yeah, but then you kind of just go, well, it's there now. Let's just see where they go with it. If it's executed poorly, then rip it apart. If they actually find a way to like do something good with it, then we can accept it. And that's kind of where we're getting the difference of already I can kind of get on board with Elendil having a daughter because I'm liking the characters and I'm liking the way they're being shown. However, I'm not liking the changes to Galadriel so much because I'm not finding that the story that she's been put in and the scripts that she's been given have been as strong. And that's kind of where it really comes down to, at least for me.
Yeah. Rachel says, I hope next week will be Eregion and Khazad-dûm focus. I'm pretty confident it will be.
I feel like it has to. I mean, it'll also be frustrating if we don't see Adar next week.
True.
Adar.
We better.
Yeah.
Kieran says, the Silmarillion is incredibly boring. I'm glad I stopped reading it early on. It's not boring. It's a tough read. It's hard to read. I feel you have to get through the first few chapters. The chapters that are kind of almost religious. You know?
But a lot of people don't like that style of writing. Sure. So it's like, obviously we like it, but I know several people who don't get along with it. Like they like hearing the stories, but not in the way that the Silmarillion tells them. So I understand, but I love it.
Yeah. Tough to read and hard to read is the same as boring. Oh, don't be silly. That's not the case at all. It's just difficult. It's just difficult. Matt says, agreed. I think Elendil is shaping up to be a really good character. No problems with him having a daughter at all. especially when they seem to get the canon character right. Yeah,
it does help. It's just completely the why do they need her? If as long as there's a good reason, makes sense, and they don't just take something away from a different character to do that, I can get on board. Obviously, that's quite a big ask, but we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm absolutely loving Lloyd Owen. Is that
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like everything about his portrayal has been perfect for me so far. Like his voice was just like I would believe he is the leader of men, basically.
Yeah.
Like I believe he could be the one to be willing to take on Sauron with Gil-galad. Like,
yeah, seems pretty badass.
I would follow him.
James Hewitt says, "Why do people continue to make excuses for this terrible series? We are not making excuses for it. We are pointing out all its flaws, but we are being straight with what we like about it, because there is definitely stuff to like. So I just feel like you've got to let your shoulders relax a little and just enjoy what we've been given. We're not being easily pleased before people start saying that. We are being very critical, but there's definitely things to like."
Yeah, that Jack Lucas's comment is kind of where I was with it. Is if they're if they're not replacing the Narion, then it could be okay. Because that was my main worry with it all, was that they were literally going, forget a Narion, let's have Aorian. And it's just like, yeah.
Interesting comment here. Since Elendil's daughter is in the Builders Guild, maybe she builds the Temple of Morgoth, especially because in some of the trailer shots it seems like she agrees with Frazon's speech and the King of Men. Interesting.
I guess,
maybe they've added her in as a conflict character.
Yeah, that could make it really interesting, because if that is the case, maybe it's that. Maybe they'll go for the story point of she's on Frazon's side, she's against it. But then at the last moment, she lets all the faithful escape because they shouldn't have to die for the sins that they commit, kind of thing. I mean, there's a story there that could be very, very good.
I agree. Sarah says, "Good morning." Good morning, Sarah.
Good afternoon.
Okay, back to the Silmarillion. I agree the content of the Silmarillion is interesting, but it doesn't make it less boring to read. Like, a lot of history is very interesting, but it's also very boring to read about. It's fair enough if you think that way. I struggled, to be honest, to read the Silmarillion, so I used to listen to it as an audiobook. I find that much easier and thoroughly enjoy it.
And yeah, there's the audiobook by, I completely forgotten who reads it. Think off the top of my head?
No.
But it's usually on like Amazon. It's not a plug, I swear. Yeah, the one that's readily available is very well read and easy to listen to, and it does help a hell of a lot.
Yeah. So Jack said, "You guys always have a respectful discussion. I massively respect that, because not enough people do. It has to be toxic, negative, or positive all the time." Thank you. We appreciate that. I mean, I just think, like, why would you have to be so set in your ways? We are just watching the show and then saying what we genuinely think about it. That's all we're doing.
It's one of those, like, in these situations, it's more fun to have an actual discussion about things. Like, we just don't want to go on a rant at you about everything's amazing, everything's the opposite. It's actually having to talk about, there's these good points, but these bad points, and how does this balance out, and where can it go from here? It just makes it so much more interesting than just going on one.
Yeah. So this is an interesting point. Do you guys like the Shadow of Mordor /War video games? I love them, even though the lore is weird at times.
Yes, that is a great point.
Yes. So, yes, I love those games. They are two of my favorite video games of all time. And it's ironic because some of the lore changes in it are super weird. Like the Nazgul, for example. Isildur is one of the 9. So is Helm Hammerhand. It's odd. It's not what Tolkien wrote, but yet I still enjoyed it. Isn't that funny?
But for some reason, people are more forgiving with a game than they are with a show. Don't know why.
People keep saying to me it's because it's Amazon. I want to boycott Amazon, which I just don't understand. Amazon, like, I don't know. They made The Boys. The Boys is great.
Yeah, that is the one part which you go, okay, they may have messed up Wheel of Time for people who are fans of that. Personally, I don't know the book Wheel of Time. I don't know the show Wheel of Time, so I can't comment on that either way. But admittedly, I'm not up to date. I've seen the first season of The Boys. But that is an incredible show, which is also an adaptation from a comic. Yeah, from a comic.
And even with that, things had changed.
Yeah, and I've never heard of a show being more like highly praised than that.
Yeah.
So the potential is there.
Yeah.
The ability is there.
That's why I like being here. These two guys are Middle Earth. Thanks. Yeah, I'm so glad I stumbled across this channel since the show has been airing. So glad you did too. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
They murdered the Wheel of Time. I haven't watched it.
I
can't tell you.
The issue is like, I don't know. I can't comment on the Wheel of Time really. If I say anything, it's with complete ignorance. So sorry.
James says, I kind of like Isildur as a Nazgul, adds an extra tragic edge to his fall into immorality. I can't say that I liked it. I like that they tried to give the Nazgul backstories. It's just something cool to explore to me.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Tolkien didn't write it, so it's fan fiction.
Yep.
So,
That's it.
And I enjoy fan fiction.
Mm.
You know, I'll watch fan films. I will read fan fiction, and that's just what this TV show is. Just as that's what the Shadow of games were. Yeah, that was a weird thing. The Shadow of War was making a human-formed and attractive version of Shelob. It just felt very off.
I feel like that would be received a lot less well now than it would have when it came out. It wasn't even that many years ago.
No.
Or probably more years than I care to realize.
It's a choice that can be defended because they say, Tolkien describes Shelob as taking the form of a giant spider, or at least Ungoliant. So from that you kind of get that they can choose their form. So I don't know. I'm not defending it. It was a weird decision. So Evan says, honestly, I think Tolkien himself would be happy just with the fact that his world is still so beloved by millions of people and will live on generations, creative changes or not. Yeah, I agree.
Like we've said before, Tolkien was okay with the majority of adaptations. He kind of admitted himself that he might not actually like enjoy watching them himself, but he likes that people want to do it. He likes that people want to tell his story in different forms. I know there are instances where he rejected the script or two, but there's also many instances. There are instances when he sold off the rights to it at the same time. He didn't hold on to them as tight as his family have afterwards. He was more willing to go. He's probably, people may not realize it, he's probably just more willing to take some money for it. It wasn't. He loved his world, but he was more open to letting other people have a go with it as well than some people actually think.
And also, he was so back and forth with the decisions that he made within his own world himself. So I don't know. I just feel like some changes are okay.
It's like the argument with the Blue Wizards. In my headcanon, they came in the Second Age, along the same time as Glorfindel, because that was the last thing, at least was published, that he wrote about them. But that is said in the unfinished tales, I believe. Whereas the other accounts of them, like in the Silmarillion, where they arrive as the five Astari at the same time in the Third Age. So that's a big difference, and it massively, for example, affects what they could do with this show if they have the rights to different books. So it shows that it only takes a little bit of extra, like, permission-wise, and they could completely change what they do.
Yeah. James says, Sexy Shelob is absolutely canon to me. I will take no question. It's fair.
I respect that decision.
Bye, Aurora. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Dominic, how's it going, Dom? Episode 3 was the best so far. The elf action was over the top, but it wasn't as bad as the Hobbit action. And now I think future episodes are going to be much better than we might have expected originally. Yeah, I agree. So far, the first 3 episodes have been significantly better than the Hobbit to me. There have been some over-the-top scenes, but at the end of the day, it's fantasy, and we've got to accept that. And I think the best is yet to come, for sure.
Yeah, I would agree.
Joseph Paloma, sorry I'm late. My main issue with this episode is the pacing issue the entire show has. The lack of balance between the vast set of characters. Overall, best episode so far. Also, Elros mentioned. I get it. I see a lot of complaints about the pacing. I'm not saying I disagree, but it's not putting me off the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the first 2 episodes felt like purely set up within themselves.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to be the beginning of a 8-episode series. This one feels more like an episode of an 8-episode series.
Yeah.
But to go from the first two to this one makes it feel like it's off.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like this one, compared to the rest of them, are more likely to be together, and then the first two are going to feel like the off ones.
And we've mentioned this before as well. You have to remember that episodes 1 and 2 were shot together, and then there was a 5-month break in production. Not just like a planned 5-month break, plus COVID. So there's inevitably going to be some kind of difference between the first two and this one. And if that ends up resulting in a weird pace, then I kind of understand.
Yeah.
I do get what you're saying, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that they shouldn't have ever made happen, but it's sadly the way these things sometimes work.
Crawling Chaos says 2 things. I want to see Adar now, and maybe some Blue Wizards, please. Yes, we also want to see Adar, for sure.
Yes.
Adar. Not 100% sure. Richard Fox. I was almost thrown out of the cinema when the elves turned up at Helm's Deep. Exactly. Like there was such huge changes from the books to the movies.
Yeah, I mean,
eventually people accepted that and accepted that the Lord of the Rings trilogy is probably the best trilogy ever made.
Yeah, I think it was the OneRing.net was sharing some stuff on Twitter not too long ago of back when they were, obviously the internet wasn't quite the vast thing it is when those films came out, but they still had forums and stuff back then of people really ripping into the idea of what Peter Jackson trilogy was before it came out. The leaks of people like Arwen being more involved, and the Elves at Helm's Deep, and even the Army of the Dead, and things like that. And some people were saying absolutely horrendous things about those films before they came out, but people forget about that.
Yeah, it's mad. Which will, as long as they stay on a decent path with this show, I think the majority of the hate will die down.
Yeah.
Hopefully, because let's be honest, a lot of the hate is just hate for hate's sake. Sadly. Do you think we will see Glorfindel season 2? Maybe. I think we will. I don't think we'll see him in this season.
Yeah, I'd very much hope we see him at some point, but I don't know how involved he can be. Not that that may matter to them. I don't know.
There's a ridiculous comment here.
Okay, let's move on.
Well defended from Kieran, though. White orcs make sense. No sunlight, so lighter skin. I'll put. Ranger of the North, how's it going? Hello, guys. Just finished with this episode. In my opinion, not great, not terrible, but more great. Lendiel is so badass, in my opinion. They have finally mentioned Denarion. Can't wait to see him. Yeah, we kind of feel the same. It wasn't a fantastic piece of television. Certainly wasn't a bad piece of television. Federico says, do you believe the show is better or worse than The Hobbit? It's definitely better than The Hobbit.
I'll say better, because they still got the potential to go somewhere great with it.
Yeah. But overall, like, even just practical orcs versus CG orcs does it for me. Don't get me wrong, there's scenes in The Hobbit I love, mostly within the Shire with Gandalf. But yeah, there's so much I dislike about The Hobbit film. We hate the fans. Come on, man. Sold out. Silly billies. What do you think about the theory that Halbrand is perhaps Theo's father? And I believe that Theo will become Camul eventually. We talked about this the other day, and I think this is quite a strong theory. They've clearly made something of Theo's father going missing. Why? Really bugging me. Yeah, about Theo's father going missing, and it's evident that Halbrand has run away from his destiny almost. So I think it definitely could be possible.
Yeah, I mean, they could make that work. They definitely could work that into the story, make it work.
Got him.
I'm sorry if that echoed through. Yeah. So, yeah, basically, like, again, mind blank.
Yeah, as for him being an Eastern, as for him being Camul, one of the 9, I think is probably quite likely. Well, again, I'm quite looking forward to going back to that storyline because we didn't have any of it in episode 3. Let's not forget that this season is most likely filmed like one long movie, but we're watching it 1 hour at a time. True, but these are television writers, so they do have to take that into consideration when writing scripts. So each episode does have to have a beginning, middle, and an end.
I would agree with that more if it was a season that was released all at once. They made that decision, and I go, okay, they're kind of considering this as one big long thing.
Yeah.
Because they do it week by week, they are very much setting it up as a tune in next week for this. Is this cliffhanger at the end of this episode?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a 2-hour live stream talking to fans and gets called out for hating fans. Like, people, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Halbrand is 50-50 in terms of being Sauron. Yeah. Who is Camul? So Camul is the only other named Nazgul.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the second in command, and he's basically the one who gets lost in the Shire when trying to find Frodo at the beginning, because the Shire is supposedly a very confusing place.
The man says, I don't see why he'd be Camul and not the Witch King. It's speculated that the Witch King is of great power, so people seem to believe that he would have been kind of like a Black Numenorian. He would have been from Numenor, because those were the greatest of men, essentially, right? So it makes sense for the Witch King to have somehow been from there.
I mean,
but who knows?
The idea of Halbrand being the Witch King and Theo being Camul, if that's father and son, that could make an interesting dynamic, especially with Bronwyn involved. Basically, seeing that happen. Again, it's a potential storyline that could come into something, or we could end up being completely wrong, and in a year or two, we've come back to this and going, we were miles off.
Shmoony024 says, just wondering if there is any videos I can look forward to from the Broken Sword. Binge watched everything in a few days. Well, thank you very much for binge watching our content.
Yeah,
we
wow,
appreciate
that's
that.
a good effort.
And there is a lot to look forward to. Our list of ideas for videos is ridiculous.
Yes, I think, well, for this next coming week, we will... Okay, obviously we got this video right now. Monday's video, assuming everything is approved as is a sponsored video, should be a full story of Saruman. Just so bring you away from the show for a bit. Our lower ones, we're trying to keep them maybe slightly overlapping, but they don't relate to the show directly at all.
No.
And then we will be having a theory video at some point in the week, most likely talking about Halbrand after the way this episode has gone, I think, but that will change in time. We will schedule that. Your next video may well be to do with Sauron and the rings, if that one goes ahead.
Yep.
But that's just a teaser, because it might not be that one this week. You'll just have to wait and see. And then we'll be back for more of this stuff next week as well. The one show if we're doing the live watch party again.
Yeah, we might do a day after. Not sure yet. Broken Sword and Indie keep me saying through all the Rings of Power discourse online. Love you guys. Thank you, Jack. We love you too. Shout out to Indie Peak. Was Camul an Easterling, or am I imagining that? Yeah, Camul was from the east. Indie Peak is my friend. He's our friend too.
Yeah, Robert is awesome.
Yeah, shout out to Robert. Indie Geek is canon Tom Bombadil. How is this stream turned into a conversation about Rob?
I mean, he has said if he's petitioning to get in season 5 dancing in the background dressed as Tom Bombadil. In which case, I want to be a hobbit dressed up in the background dancing too.
There's more comments here. That Galadriel shot was so weird. They could have just shown her smiling in normal speed and it would have shown the same thing. Yeah, I agree. It was... There is no creative decision that makes sense there. Even as filmmakers, like showing that in slow-mo, it has no relevance to the story other than this looks cool in slow-mo.
Yeah, because it was literally just a case of they're going from point A to point B. Okay, fine. Lord of the Rings has established they like their dramatic like aerial shots. They could have just had one of those on the beach with the horse going across. That's it. That would have been more than enough. Like, you didn't get all the shots in the Lord of the Rings of these epic mountain, like, landscape shots, and then also getting into them really close, walking as well. No, you got the idea.
Kieran says, how do you guys think the orcs captured the other elves? They went in the opposite direction when they left, didn't they? And they were all well armed and enforced. It's just meant to be...
My theory behind this is when Arondir obviously went back to Bronwyn, she was like, well, what are you doing here? And he's like, kind of come back. He's like, well, what about the others? Like, oh, they're probably searching for me. So my thought is they went searching for him and got captured that way. Don't really know how they ended up getting captured first, but maybe it was just cross paths. But that's my idea. Point, my idea is they probably went back to search for him and then they got captured in that way.
Yeah, because he literally says that in the first episode. They're probably looking for me right now.
Yeah.
I just seen a comment here. It's going to be memed to death. That is a concern. The show's getting enough unnecessary hate. So, it's a shame. But sometimes if they make a poor decision, they need to be punished for it, I guess.
Yeah, so from Dweller of the Earth, a comment there saying, yeah, that line was a bit, yeah.
Did you say ride?
That was that was a proper like wink into the camera moment. It
felt like it should have gone. Did you say ride? You need a montage. Montage.
Oh dear. If we don't laugh, we cry.
Elbow, leave it alone, man. Oh, this is an interesting one. How do we think Rings of Power will present Sauron as Anatar? Excited to see him. I think they will, in order to get us as an audience to believe that he is the mighty deceiver that he is, they have to also deceive us. Does that make sense? So obviously, Sauron is a master manipulator, and he is going to fool many people, Razon, Celebrimbor, into doing these things. And if we are to believe that he could fool those people, he must also fool us. So I think we have to not see it coming. In the moment, pretty much 80% of the audience seem to be saying that Halbrand is Sauron. So if that's the case, then he has failed in his deceiving. What was up with the Warg's eyes, anime style? Yeah, they look like a pug.
Yeah, and kind of like cross-eyed-ish. Just it basically looked like it was a warg that was crossbred, maybe. Like maybe
I took it as like a young female warg.
Yeah, I thought maybe it's like an early attempt at like Sauron's early attempt to create the more beastie wargs or something.
I just didn't like it.
I don't know. I feel like there's no real.
So Halbrand be Sauron and Galadriel has the hots for him. I don't think she does. I really, really hope she doesn't. If that's a thing, I will struggle to defend this show.
Yeah, if that's a love interest, bad. If he's Sauron, bad. If he's Sauron and there's a love interest, then yeah, I'm gonna struggle.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah. The warg looked like they had overbred it like a pug. In my mind, it's their way of showing the progression to the wargs we see in the Third Age. Yeah. Although just showing a stupid-looking warg doesn't really explain that. So I don't think they can hope that everyone thinks that way.
Yeah. Oh, we have a class starting in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So we may actually have to round up in a sec.
2 minutes, guys, and we will go. Chris says, I hope they incorporate Celeborn at some point, just for sake of canon. Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that they're going to. I've heard they've said it. I don't know if that's an official thing or if that's just people have spoke to people and it's kind of been said that, yeah, he will be around.
Ruben says, I did like Lloyd Owen as Elendil, despite the shaken dialogue. He's my favorite character so far. That's kind of how I felt. I think some of the dialogue was a bit weak, but he was great. Again, there he is. Here he is. I like the armor as well. Parts of it, I don't know how I feel about this sort of sketch, lack of a better word, on the front. But apart from that, it's kind of cool. Where can I get your black shirt? It's no longer available, I'm afraid.
Although we are in the process of setting up a merch store again.
Yes.
As for those of you who have been with us for a while, you know we've had issues with merch and stuff before. We're at least going to get some basic stuff up, some logo stuff and all that. And we're hoping to get more up. Obviously, we just have to be careful with what that is. But stay tuned and keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah.
Sadly, it won't be that one.
No. Thanks for the stream, guys. Looking forward to more great videos. Keep up the awesome work. Thank you very much, Jack. Thanks for tuning in. Well, people are saying bye to us now, so I guess we'll say our goodbyes. It's been an hour and 49. That's almost 4 hours of live streams we've done today, so I think we've broken our record.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun. We really, really appreciate you guys all tuning in today. It's been fun to talk to you from 4:30 a.m. this morning to now.
Yep.
The episode was good. That's the best I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Again, like James said earlier, we have lore videos every Monday and Thursday. Those are not Rings of Power lore videos. They are Middle-earth Tolkien lore videos. And we will be live streaming around the show in between those. So hopefully you can tune in to our future live streams. Again, thank you all for your comments, and we will see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.